I had sat through 41 sessions of the Calyx assembly by the time they came for us, and I had learned to read the chamber the way a sailor reads weather. That morning the weather was fair. The dome above the central well was clear. The pale stone tiers were full, and the renewal vote on Earth's provisional observer status sat third on the docket. Between a fisheries dispute among the Arune systems and a routine tariff adjustment nobody cared about. Routine. That was the word I used in my notes that morning, and I underlined it because I had learned that on Calyx the word routine was usually a door someone was about to walk through. Naomi Ito sat to my left, Tomas Reyes to my right, and between us we had 11 years on this rock and not one formal complaint filed against us. We had built that record on purpose. The assembly trusted predictable things, and we had made ourselves the most predictable delegation in the well-punctual, quiet, unfailingly correct in our forms. I had told Ito once, early on, that the safest thing a small power could do in a room like this was become furniture. She had not liked the comparison. She had stopped arguing with it after the 3rd year. Above us, the tiers filled in their usual order. The Arune elders came first, pale and unhurried, their robes catching the dome light in long folds of soft luminance, settling into the high seats reserved for the founding worlds. Below them, the Thren delegation arrived in their customary disorder, talking over one another in overlapping registers that the translation feed rendered as a single braided murmur. The Kether rows filled last and quietest, mottled gray shapes folding themselves into seats built for bodies with one fewer set of joints than they needed, patient in the particular way of a species that has never once been in a hurry and never once been wrong about it mattering. 300 delegates, 41 flagged systems among them, and us 3 humans at a side table that had been added to the floor plan, I had been told once, almost as an afterthought. The interruption came before the fisheries dispute was even cold. A Compliance Directorate officer entered from the lower arch, one of the Kether, mottled gray, multi-jointed, moving with that unhurried gait, their kind affect when they want you to understand that hurry would imply doubt. He did not address the chair. He addressed us, directly, across the well. In the flat administrative register Calyx, reserved for matters it considered already settled. The human delegation is to be remanded to Directorate custody, he said, pending review of unregistered logistics activity attributed to Earth-flagged entities across 41 systems. The renewal vote is suspended until the review concludes. 41 systems. I noted that number and set it aside. The way you set aside a stone you mean to come back to. There is a version of this moment that plays out, with raised voices, with a diplomat on his feet demanding evidence, citing treaty articles, appealing to the chair. I have read transcripts of other delegations doing exactly that, over smaller things, and I have watched what it bought them, which was nothing, plus a permanent mark in the record as a power that panics. I stood. Ito stood. Reyes stood. None of us spoke. I folded my notes, set them on the table in their proper stack, and walked toward the lower arch with the Ketha officer falling into step beside me, visibly unsettled, I think, by how little he had to do. The cell they gave us was clean and gray and had no clock, which is its own kind of message. I did not ask for one. I did not ask for counsel, or for a hearing date, or for the charges in writing. Though I was entitled to all 3. I had decided, somewhere on the walk down, that the only thing I had to offer this room was silence, and that I would offer it completely, the way you'd offer the only coin you had. The 3 of us did not talk much those first days. There was nothing to plan. We had no instructions to wait for, no contingency we needed to discuss aloud, because the thing that mattered had been set in motion decades before any of us had ever heard the word Calyx. Ito spent the 2nd day with her eyes closed, not sleeping. Running through, she told me later, The full list of every framework filing our mission had ever inherited from the predecessors who'd come before us, trying to remember which ones had a name attached and which had only ever been a registry number. Reyes paced. I sat with my back against the cold wall and thought about the number 41, and about how a number like that, in a room like the Assembly's, was never an accident of arithmetic. Someone, generations ago, had chosen it on purpose, and then had gone home and never told anyone what it was for. Reyes broke first, not with words, but with a question in his face. On the second day, I shook my head. Not yet. Not because I was waiting for anything in particular. I want to be honest about that. Looking back, I did not know, sitting in that cell, what was already moving. I only knew that explaining ourselves would have required us to translate something the Assembly had no frame for, and a translation offered to a room that has already decided your guilt is not a defense. It is a confession with extra words. What we got, over the following days, were fragments. The Ketha guards were not cruel, only careless, and careless people talk near the people they've stopped seeing as people. On the third day, one of them complained to another that the Thren trade mission had gone dark, no scheduled transfers, no manifest updates, nothing, since the morning of our arrest. On the fourth day, a different god mentioned, with real irritation, that an Orune shipping consortium had filed 41 separate notices in a single afternoon, all citing the same obscure subsection of Assembly Commercial Code, all effectively withdrawing standing authorizations that had been quietly in place for longer than either guard had been alive. 41. I sat with that number in the dark and felt something settle in my chest that was not relief and was not fear. It was closer to recognition, the feeling of watching a door you didn't know you'd left open finally swing shut on its own. On the sixth day, they brought us back to the well without ceremony. The same Ketha officer met us at the arch, and something in his bearing had changed. He kept a half-step more distance than before, the way you'd stand from a structure you'd been told. Too late was load-bearing. He informed us, in the same flat register, that the review had concluded, that the unregistered logistics nodes in question had in fact been registered under a humanitarian logistics framework filed with the Assembly's predecessor body decades earlier, dormant, unflagged, and forgotten by everyone except, apparently, the framework itself. The act of freezing those nodes, under Calyx's own commercial code, had been legally indistinguishable from a lapse. And a lapse, under that same code, triggered an automatic fallback, full withdrawal of standing cooperation across every system where a node existed, recallable only by a supermajority vote of all 41 affected delegations within the Assembly, a vote that, as a procedural matter, could not even be scheduled for another 19 days. He did not apologize. The Assembly does not apologize. He simply stepped aside and gestured us back toward the well, where the chair was already calling the chamber back to order, already moving to resume the renewal vote on Earth's status, as though 6 days were a pause and not a fault line. We walked back to our places. I sat down, squared my notes still in their proper stack, untouched, and looked up at the tiers. The Orune elders in their pale robes. The Ketha rose, muddled and still. The Thren delegation, usually restless, sitting now with an unnatural stillness of their own, the kind that comes from people doing arithmetic they don't want to finish out loud. The chair called the question on Earth's provisional observer status. I stood. I did not raise a hand. I did not ask to be recognized. I simply stood, and Ito stood beside me, and Reyes a half-second after, and we gathered our notes and walked toward the upper arch, the one that led out, not down at the unhurried pace of people leaving a meeting that has nothing further to do with them. No one called after us. No one moved to stop us. I have turned that over many times since, and I believe it was not courtesy. I believe it was the sound of 41 delegations, in the same breath, understanding precisely what their own arithmetic now required of them, and understanding that whatever the assembly decided about Earth in the next 10 minutes would matter to almost no one in that room by morning. We crossed the threshold into the corridor light, and behind us the well went silent. Not the silence of a chamber waiting for a vote, but the silence of a chamber that has just heard, all at once, a debt come due. I did not look back. There was nothing back there that needed me to see it. We had built those nodes 70 years before I was born, in the quiet, patient way that outlasts the people who start it registered, filed, forgotten on purpose. An insurance policy written in a language only the policy itself could speak. The assembly had not been wrong that something of ours was out there, unaccounted for, waiting. They had only been wrong about what would happen if they reached out and grabbed it.